Almost there. Chapter 33. Tiana. There y'all are. Louis's boisterous voice greeted them as soon as they cleared the thicket of trees. Tiana held up the branch she carried back. This is the best we could find. How'd y'all do? About the same, Naveen answered, motioning to a long pole that looked to be thin enough to fit between the bottom of the boat and the gnarled vines. Tiana just hoped it was strong enough to withstand the amount of effort it would take to dislodge the vessel. You'd think there should be a better selection of sticks out here in the sticks. But they were either too fat or too skinny or too short. Very frustrating. We'll make do with what we have, Tiana said. She looked up at the sky. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I think we should wait till morning. Are you sure? Naveen asked. She nodded and hooked her thumb back toward where she and Charlotte had just returned from. I spotted a bit of clearing back there. It wasn't a large space, but it seemed to be big enough for us to stretch out for the night. Are you saying we're going to have to sleep on the ground? Charlotte asked. Why can't we sleep on the boat? You can take your chances on the boat if you want to, Tiana said. But if it happens to dislodge while you're asleep and drifts away? She shrugged her shoulders. Fine, I'll sleep on the ground, Charlotte groused. I swear, once we get back to New Orleans, I'm going to have Big Daddy treat us to a full day of pampering. We deserve it. I do have a blanket, if that makes you feel any better, Tiana told her. She looked apologetically over at Naveen and Louis. Unfortunately, that's all I have. I only packed it in case I got chilly while on the boat. At the time, I thought I would be the only one out here. Not a problem, Naveen said. He clamped a hand on Louis's shoulder. We can rough it, right, my friend? Rough it? Man, this feels like home to me, Louis grinned. You sleep on the ground when you're at home? Naveen balked. Tiana, maybe you should consider paying my friend here a little more when he plays at the supper club, eh? At least enough for him to afford a proper bed. Louis gets paid handsomely, Tiana said. She narrowed her eyes at Louis. He just likes the great outdoors. She turned to the boat. Let's get the food. I'll get started on dinner as soon as we set up camp. They grabbed the bags out of the boat, and with Tiana leading the way, marched a single file toward the clearing. Tia, look over here, Charlotte called. She pointed toward the bank of the bayou. Are those palmetto leaves near the shoreline? Maybe we could lay those out on the ground as some kind of cover. Good thinking, Lottie, Tiana said. Let's get those to the clearing. Then we can come back for the palmettos. The area Tiana had spotted earlier turned out to be larger than she first thought. There was more than enough room for all of them to spread out, and there was even a large tree stump with a smooth top, as if someone had made a table for them. This is going to do just fine, Tiana said. They set their supplies out near the tree stump and returned to the bayou's edge to pick up the palmettos. In no time at all, they had several dozen stacked along the bank. I reckon this is enough, Tiana said. She glanced up at the ominous gray cloud that had drifted overhead. The rain is coming. We need to get back and find ourselves a tree to settle in under before it starts to pour. Charlotte pulled another palmetto from the marshy area. Maybe just a few more. I like a plush bed. She paused and pointed at the water. What's that ripple? Tiana whipped around. Her stomach dropped. Lottie, get back! Tiana screamed just as a large alligator lurched forward, its massive body splashing against the shore. Naveen reached over and grabbed Lottie by the waist, jerking her away from the water. Everybody run! He yelled, carrying Lottie in his arms and galloping through the reeds, palms, and cattails. Instead of running away from the shore, Louis started toward it. Louis, what are you doing? Don't go near the water! Tiana cried. Don't worry, he said. I know how to handle these gators. He turned to the huge reptile, his hands raised in entreaty. It's okay, fella. We're just getting a few of these palms. Nothing to worry about. Just give us a... The gator lurched itself at him. Louis! Tiana yelled. Louis hightailed it out of the bayou, running toward Tiana at full speed. His eyes were wide with fear and confusion and hurt. Are you okay? Tiana asked him. He shook his head as he gulped down air with huge, long-filling breaths. He rested his hands on his thighs. After a moment, he took Tiana by the arm, moving several yards away from where Naveen and Charlotte stood. You don't understand, Tiana, Louis whispered. That was Henry. We grew up together. It was as if he didn't know me. The sadness in his eyes broke her heart. I don't think he does, Louis, she reminded him in the soft voice. You're not one of them anymore. Tiana stood by silently, offering her friend a comfort as he digested her words. She could see the reality sinking in as myriad emotions moved across his face. The realization that he could not straddle both worlds. Now he was human, his old life here in the bayou truly was over. A pang of guilt shot through Tiana. Even though she had done what she thought Louis wanted, what she had thought would keep him safe, she wondered if it had been right to bring him into her deal with Dr. Facilier at all. Placing a hand on his rough arm, she looked over at the other two and called, Let's get our palm fronds and get back to camp before the rain comes. A loud crack of thunder rang out, like an exclamation point on her statement. Charlotte stood as the lookout, while Tiana, Louis, and Naveen quickly gathered up the palm fronds they'd already collected. Once back at the clearing, the mood was subdued. They went about setting things up for the night, the encounter with the gator bringing the dangers they faced out there in the bayou into stark relief. Thunder rent the air, and shots of heavy rain poured down like a curtain all around them. But oddly, the area where they'd set up their camp remained dry, as if an invisible dome covered them. Does this rainstorm seem peculiar to you, or is it just me? Naveen asked. Tiana couldn't explain it, so she simply shrugged. She made a paste with the sardines and spread it over the loaves of fresh bread she'd bought at the market before they left. She set it out along with some of the fruit and shelled pecans. She continued to observe Louis out of the corner of her eye as she nibbled on her meager dinner. His forlorn mien was so contrary to his usual cheery disposition. It was as if he was an entirely different person. Because he was. That was the issue. He was a person. She wondered, after a full year as a human, was he starting to regret the change? After finishing up her meal, Tiana dusted off her hands and went over to him. She quietly approached, giving Louis space to decline her company if he chose. Relief washed over her when he patted the ground next to him. You didn't eat much, she said, gesturing to his half-eaten bread. I don't have much of an appetite. You know, Louis, Tiana started in a lowered voice. When I made that deal with the Shadow Man, I included you in it because I knew how much you dreamed of becoming a human. But I shouldn't have assumed I knew what you might want or need. I'm so sorry. She paused. If we could figure out a way to change the deal, would you want to go back to the way things were? He shrugged. I like playing with the crawfish crooners, but I do miss my family sometimes. He looked over at her. I'm not sure I'll fit in with them anymore. Not after what happened tonight with Henry. Henry didn't recognize you as you are now, but I'm sure if you return to your former state, maybe Mama Odie could help with that, too. She covered his forearm and gave it a squeeze. I would miss you, but I want you to be happy. I would miss you, too, and Charlotte and Naveen and the guys in the band. His expression was full of remorse. You decide which would make you happier. The choice is up to you. She looked him in the eye. It should have always been up to you. Louis shot her a shaky smile, and she left her friend to his thoughts, pushing up from the ground and returning to the tree stump to clean up the remnants of their dinner, only to discover Louis and Lottie putting things away. I was going to do that, Tiana said. You fixed the meal, Charlotte pointed out. The least we could do is clean up. You don't have to do everything yourself, Tia. Tiana stood there, uncertain what to do with herself. See, we can be useful, Lottie said once they were done. She stretched her arms above her head and released a yawn. But today has been a lot. I'm going to bed. At least I hope I can get some beauty sleep out here. She grabbed the blanket and went over to the bed of the palmettos they spread over the ground. Meanwhile, Naveen motioned for Tiana to come with him. She followed him to one of the big cypress trees that surrounded their camp, and they both slid to the ground, sitting with their backs against the tree's trunk. Is he okay? Naveen pointed at Louis, who remained in the spot where Tiana had left him, on the other side of the clearing. I think so, Tiana said. He just misses his family. I can understand that, Naveen remarked. Tiana studied his profile, realizing he was in a similar situation, even if his wasn't magically motivated. "It's been a year since you've seen them," she said. "Back in the boat, you asked if I ever think about going back." He picked up a small twig and twirled it around. "My parents have invited me to return home." Tiana was shocked by the sudden, profound anguish that instantly swept over her just as the thought of him leaving. Of course, she considered it numerous times this past year, telling herself it would be better for her if he did return to his homeland. Yet hearing these words sent a sharp pain straight to her chest. She swallowed past the lump of emotion, clogging her throat, before asking in a quiet voice, "Will you?" Naveen brought his knees up and rested his elbows on them. He continued to twirl the stem between his fingers, a contemplative look on his face. After several minutes ticked by, he looked over her and said, "Not if I have a reason to stay." "Say, from you?" Her breath caught. "Me?" "Yes, you," he said softly. "There are many things in America that I've come to enjoy, but I can find those back in Maldonia. There's only one thing here that I cannot find anywhere else. That is you, Tiana." He turned to her. "I want the chance to get you to know you better. Will I get that chance if I remain here in America?" "Oh, Naveen." The words came out in a raw whisper. Despite over what she knew could never be threatened to shatter what little control she still held over her emotions. "I am simply asking for a chance," he said. She didn't have the heart to tell him that there was no chance, not if she wanted to keep him safe. Instead, Tiana reached over and took his hand. She threaded their fingers together and tilted her head to the side until it rested on his shoulder. "Let's get some sleep. We've got a long day tomorrow." Tiana sensed he wanted to say more, but he didn't. Pretty soon the driving rain and the low hum of buzzing insects were the only sounds on the bayou.